All right, let's talk about one of the most dreaded parts of any standardized test, the SAT math section. We're going to pull back the curtain today and show you exactly how they build their trickiest questions, and more importantly, how you can build a playbook to beat them.
So let's just cut right to the chase. I want to start with the big question, the one that I'm sure has crossed your mind while you're staring at some crazy looking problem. Is the SAT actually trying to trick you on purpose?
The short answer? Oh, yeah. Yes, it is. It's really not just in your head. The people who write these tests are absolute masters at setting up psychological traps. These things actually have a name. They're called trap answers, and they are wrong answers that are specifically designed to look right, especially if you're rushing or not paying super close attention. But here's the good news. Once you see how they're made, you can spot them a mile away. And this is your insider's guide. So you might be asking, why would they even do this? Well, it's pretty simple, actually. The SAT uses these traps as a kind of filter. They want to separate two types of students. On one side, you've got the student who's panicking, just trying to get through the test as fast as possible. And on the other side, you have the student who is careful, who is strategic, who double checks everything. Trap answers are literally what separates those two scores.
Now, these traps aren't just random. Nope, they're built on the most common, predictable mistakes students make year after year. Stuff like, completely misreading a question that asks for which of the following is not true, or totally ignoring that a problem switches from hours to minutes, or forgetting the difference between a median and a mean. The test makers know exactly where our weak spots are. So, let's meet the culprits. If you can understand the test maker's playbook, you can start to see their moves coming before they even make them.
First up, we have an absolute classic, the misleading figure. You see a diagram, and right away, your brain starts to make assumptions just based on how it looks. And here's the trick. The SAT might tell you a figure is not drawn to scale, but honestly, even when it doesn't say that, you can't trust it. An angle might look like a perfect 90 degrees, but it's really 89. Two lines might look totally parallel, but they're just slightly off. The number one rule here is always, always trust the numbers and the labels they give you, not your eyes. All right, let's move on to the next one. This trap is so common, and man, is it easy to fall for when you're in a hurry. I'm talking about units and conversions. The problem will give you a speed in miles per hour, but then ask how far you traveled in like 20 minutes. Or it'll give you a box's dimensions in feet, but ask for the area in square inches. The trap answer is the one you get if you forget to convert. So the golden rule is simple. Before you do any math, get all your units on the same page. Okay, this next one is a little more subtle. It messes with the way our brains process logic when we're under pressure. This is the reverse reasoning trap. So the question might be something like, if x is a positive even integer, which of the following must be true? And one of the answer choices might be something that's true for, say, all integers. It's a tempting answer because it's a true statement, but it doesn't answer the specific question they asked. You have to make sure your answer matches the exact conditions they gave you in the problem. And finally, let's look at a trap that is all about catching calculation errors. This is where the answer choices themselves are the trap, using numbers that are super close together. So let's say you solve a problem, and you get 7.18. You look at the answer choices, and they are 7.1, 7.2, and 7.3. The test is basically baiting you. daring you to round incorrectly or just kind of eyeballing the answer. They're testing your precision. So the key is, don't just estimate when the numbers are that close. You have to calculate carefully all the way to the end.
Okay, so we've identified the enemy, we know their playbook, now how do we fight back? Let's get into your smart counter moves, the strategies you can actually use on test day.
Here it is, a simple 4-step process. First, before you even solve, make a rough guess. This will help you immediately throw out any answers that are just way off. Second, if you see a bunch of variables like x and y, plug in some simple numbers and make the problem real. Third, if you are totally stuck, work backwards. Plug the answer choices into the problem and see which one fits. And finally, always do a quick sanity check at the end. Does my answer make sense?